So today we're going to talk about weight loss. Dave Murphy's on the line. He's agreed to tell his story. I've shared many times that I'm seeing a lot of people who've lost significant amounts of weight, 20, 30 pounds. You lose that kind of weight and it makes a bigger difference than any medication, any supplement, any surgery that you can do long term for your health. I was talking with Dave is in a doctor-patient relationship, and he shared, yep, I lost 135 pounds. So obviously that's a big, big deal. And a lot of people want to know, how did you do that? So Dave, why don't you take it from here? Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, I've been a serial dieter for quite a while. At my heaviest, I think I was close to 330, 335, and tried several different things, some of the fad diets, and just success at several different options, but never could keep the weight off. And I got down to 75 and held that for a while, and then started creeping back up again. And shoulder surgery back in first part of 2018, I was up to about 285, 290 at the shoulder surgery. And then while I was recuperating from that, I had coronary calcium scan done, and that triggered the high score over 2,500, triggered some concerns. So ended up getting ready for a triple bypass and decided to look into some other things. And I started intermittent fasting and then run into keto. And I've dropped 100 pounds between fasting and the keto, and I'm down right now to 184, shooting for 175.
So let me repeat that. There were 3 key items, or maybe 4 key items that I heard you mention. The first one is that you had tried other types of diets several times, and you sort of did the yo-yo thing. The second one was that you had a positive calcium score, a significant one, over 2,000, and that was a major motivator. The third item was you said, okay, I'm going to close my eating window. A lot of people call that intermittent fasting. I'll let you describe exactly what that meant for you. And then you dropped the carbs. You went full keto. So is that what you're saying? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it transpired. I found intermittent fasting, read a couple books on that and started that, and then pretty good success with that, trying different eating windows. Still wasn't completely happy with it. Then I ran across Dr. Annette Bosworth, and for keto protocols, and started that. And then just here recently, the last 3 months or so, 3 months ago, she did an online consistently keto course that I took, and I've kind of refined my keto now and have learned how to do that properly. And it's basically, as she says, chemistry set as opposed to a diet. It's, teaching your body to use ketones instead of carbs, and that's been pretty successful for me. I able to combine that with fasting, and the higher fat diet, low carbs, makes the fasting easier, and fasting makes the keto more successful. So the combination of the two seems to be working well for me.
It sounds like it. So a couple of different things that I wanted to get a little bit more detail on. You tried other diets before this, right?
Exactly.
What did you try before?
I tried Nutrisystem and Plan Z. That's the two that stick out in my mind, and just, trying to cut back the whole calories in, calories out, counting calories, and that's never been successful for me. Insurance company paid for a plan called Real Appeal that was basically calories in, calories out, and that was about the same time I was starting the keto and doing the research on the keto, and I about had my sponsor there at the Real Appeal sessions convinced that maybe there was something to keto and as opposed to the calories in, calories out, and then my subscription to that plan ended, so I didn't get to finish indoctrinating her in better ways of eating as opposed to standard American diet, just counting calories. That is just a total joke, in my opinion.
Well, as you know, we went for decades thinking that it was just calories in, calories out. And then this whole thing started coming up about, wait a minute, the hormonal theory of weight gain, weight loss. It started all the way back with Banting over 100 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
And he wrote the first diet book, and you're familiar with it. Then, 15, 20 years ago, you started getting things like Gary Taubes's books, Good Calories, Bad Calories, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. Then you've started getting a lot of academic researchers into this space. There's two guys, both of them are endocrinologists, and one of them wrote Sugar, the Bitter Truth. He's on the West Coast, and he's got a friend who's also an endocrinologist. So then you started getting some real research in this space where they've actually documented much better results with the hormonal theory of weight loss. So you've lived it, you've discovered it. You're not the only one. A lot of people have lived it as well. What got you started on the fasting, and what did the intermittent fasting look like for you? What different items have you tried?
Well, the fasting, that was weird. I was actually doing some research and reading up on, I've got a mild tinnitus or tinnitus, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, and was looking for ways to address that. And one of the books I read had mentioned something about intermittent fasting, so that's what sent me down the trail of intermittent fasting, and I read a couple books on that, and started out with the typical 16-8 and 16 hours fasting, an 8-hour eating window, and then kept shortening up my windows and do some longer fasts. I had just a routine colonoscopy and had to fast. I think ended up being about 40, 45 hours for that. And did that without any problems. So I figured the extended fasting wasn't an issue for me either. And then I stumbled on to like I say, to Dr. Bosworth's keto and started doing the keto and combining that with the intermittent fasting. And that seemed to be, at least for me, to be the key to success. I say at this point right now, I'm in the series of a weekly 72-hour fast, and then I just do one meal a day on the rest of the days. And the extended fast is in an effort to get my morning blood sugars down and also to boost my ketones and boost my immune system, which that's been proven to do. And then once I hit goal weight, which is only about another 8 or 9 pounds yet, then I'll probably see what just one meal a day does for me after that.
So your volume decreased dramatically there. So let me check on my math just a minute. If you're doing a 72-hour fast and one meal a day the other days, that means you're eating 4 meals a week?
Yeah, 4 meals. Sometimes I'll put a couple snacks in there as well. Sometimes on the weekend, I'll eat 2 meals a day. And the biggest thing at this point is when I do eat, whatever I eat on the eating days or is the keto factor, where I'm keeping track of my total carbs, not net carbs, and then trying to get those down under 20 a day.
Total carbs under 20.
Yeah.
Just to go back to a thing, and I'd like to get into the keto for just a second. The name I was trying to remember was Robert Lustig and David Ludwig. Both of them are endocrinologists. Yep. Lustig is in UC San Francisco. He wrote the book, Sugar, the Bitter Truth, plus several others, Hijacking the American Mind. David Ludwig wrote the book, Always Hungry. Both of them run obesity centers. In Ludwig for Harvard in Boston, and Lustig for UC San Francisco in San Francisco. So it's very interesting couple of guys, and both of them have some very good world-class research, which started, maybe 20 years ago. They started to show that when we change the hormones in our body that are related to food and digestion, it totally changes the mix. And here's where that gets back to. Most people would agree, if you go to 4 meals a week, you're going to lose weight. But the question is, how do you go to 4 meals per week? And you've mentioned Dr. Boz and the keto experience a couple of times. Did that impact your hunger, your ability to stick with the diet?
Well, yeah, the keto, like I say, is cutting out the carbs, 20 carbs or total carbs or less a day, and then upping the fat intake. My biggest trip up probably on my keto is I get too much protein, and that can cause some gluconeogenesis that adds to your sugar load. But that's my biggest challenge, is keeping my fat intake up to where it should be and keeping the protein down. I have a tendency to go over on my protein. I use the chronometer app to monitor my carbs and calories, and it's not so much tracking calories as it is the macros. I found if I keep my fat intake up, that does help with satiety and makes the fasting go a lot easier.
So I've heard a couple of other things that I've heard before, but one of them, not so much on a practical basis. The other one I've heard many times, chronometer app. Had a lot of people use it, swear by it. They really liked it. They thought it was very practical and helpful. The other thing I heard from you that I've heard mostly theoretically, I haven't heard it on a practical basis that often, and that was protein leading to gluconeogenesis. So given the level of fasting and keto that you're doing, you're actually seeing that. One of your biggest challenges at this point?
Yeah, I'm a protein addict. I like my meat, but I've always tended toward leaner cuts of meat, and now trying to retrain myself to eat the fattier cuts of meat and full-fat dairy and butter and some of the things to up my fat intake, and then try to keep my protein down a little bit. I have found that helps my morning numbers. Another thing I've found that helps is I used to have my one meal, or if I was eating 2 meals, my last meal of the day or my only meal of the day, whatever you want to call it, was generally in the evening. And I've tried to move that up now more toward noon or afternoon, and that seems to help my morning numbers if I don't eat so late in the day.
It certainly helps shifting that forward. For most people, when they talk about closing their eating window or intermittent fasting, for most people, they're basically skipping breakfast. And yep, I understand that. It fits with the human social component of eating together at night, but it's not as healthy as phasing that forward into the day and eating breakfast or noon, having that eating time at breakfast or noon rather than dinner.
Yeah, the social aspect is always a challenge. I've been doing this long enough now that my social circle is aware of what I'm doing, and like my boss in particular, he and I, more of a best friends relationship than a boss and or worker relationship. We go out to eat. I mean, prior to my diet experience there, we eat at least one meal, sometimes 2 meals together a day, out to eat breakfast or lunch, or sometimes lunch and dinner. It varied. And I've got him trained now where he asks, is this an eating day or is this a fasting day? So he doesn't, and he knows that if it's a fasting day or if it's not in my eating window, that I'll still join him for the meal. I'll just have a cup of coffee or a glass of tea, and I don't eat. He's fine with that. But, he is adjusted to what I'm doing and surrounded accordingly, and we still have our social time together, and same way with friends and family. So it's, a lot of people are worried about the social interaction, and you just got to stand by what you're doing and let them know that that's what I want to do and for my health, and most of them accept that. I haven't had any pushback at this point.
It's been some major changes. Again, I think a lot of people would listen to you and think, dang, I wish I could do that. Any final suggestions or help on those folks that are listening thinking, gosh, I really need to lose weight, but I can't imagine eating 4 meals a week. It's just hard to wrap my head around. Or having coffee or tea when I go out with family to a restaurant.
Yeah, and the 4 meals a week, that's just a temporary. The 72-hour fast is just an 8-week cycle, and then I'll get back to one meal a day after that. And then, like I say, sometimes on the weekends, I'll open it up to 2 meals a day. And the whole thing about it is, especially with the intermittent fasting and keto, is it's adjustable. It's you can make it fit your lifestyle. If you've got a weekend with family and friends and you want to eat a couple meals, go ahead and eat. It's not, some people call it a cheat day, but I don't call it a cheat. I call it a planned, diversion from the normal. And the biggest thing is whatever I eat, I try to keep it down to 20 carbs or less during the course of the day. So, if I want to eat a lunch and a supper, and I try to keep it keto, and if it's breakfast with the family or dinner with the family or lunch with the family or, celebratory, somebody's birthday or whatever, I'll go and eat the meal and maybe skip the cake and the dessert portion of it. And it's not a rigid deal by any stretch of the imagination. I guess that's the part that appeals to me is I can change it up to meet my social needs or, The other thing is if you're in the middle of a fast and you just absolutely, can't, you're having physical problems, you're getting weak or dizzy or whatever, then it's not the end of the world. Break your fast and eat something. A lot of it's learning to listen to your body and recognize the difference between you're bored and want something to eat because you don't know what to do, or the fact that you are physically in need of nourishment. Learning to detect the difference between the two.
That's such a key point. And this has been before I go there, you've obviously been on both sides of that space where in the beginning, at one point when you were 130 pounds heavier, food, I'm sure, was a lot of times it was for entertainment. And I think a whole lot of us have been there. I came from a family where food was entertainment. And now to make that transition, that's just a huge story, a huge change in lifestyle. We really appreciate you sharing it. One other question before we go. How much of your ability to make those changes was finding that positive calcium score, and how much of it was going keto?
Well, I think the motivation to start was probably the calcium score, and then that led to a triple bypass, which, doing the research that I've done on that, I don't know if I had known then what I know now. I don't know if I'd have had the bypass at this point, but that was a motivation to look for something that would get the weight down, because I knew that was part of the problem. And then finding the keto and the way that Dr. Bosworth implements that has been key to making it doable for me. Her whole, like I say, this consistently keto course that she's got that I've participated in, and then the support group that she's got together following up with that has been key to making it doable. I mean, you're interacting. There's a Facebook group that she's put together strictly for her graduate of her course that is key to, if you're having challenges, you can get on there and talk to other people that had the same challenge and figure out what they did to get by, or offer your support to other people that are having trouble, and that in turn helps yourself. So the keto has been a key to I think the sustainability of it for me.
Yeah. I see that over and over again. Dropping the carbs, whether you go full keto or not, is critical to stopping that up and down and that need to snack. The other thing I've seen is, again, a very practical and committed approach to full-blown keto that Dr. Boz teaches. I think she's helping a lot of people in their health.
What I've learned from you has gone a long ways to my health journey as well. So, I've got to give you some credit as well. It got me to look at a lot of this and get some of this testing done, and still waiting on get that OGTT done with the insulin this time. Hopefully the lab doesn't mess that up like they did last time and drop the ball on the insulin portion of it. So CT angiogram and the CIMT and another coronary calcium done. So we'll see what happens here in the next month or two. Hopefully we'll get that all put together as well.
For those of you listening, Dave is describing his experience as a patient with us. He's measuring his plaque using CT angiogram, CIMT, and getting that done. Also looking at his pattern in terms of glucose metabolism, what his body can do when it is challenged with glucose, and suffering the challenges that many of us have in terms of getting the right labs done. Quest can sometimes throw us a few challenges as we get there. But most of the credit, Dave, goes to you. You've gotten some help from Dr. Boz. You've gotten some help from me. But I think you've added very clearly, very easily added, well, not easily, but very clearly, probably added a couple of healthy decades to your life with the work that you've done, maybe more.
Well, I'm hoping that's the plan anyway. I mean, the key takeaway I've gotten from you is you can't fix what you don't measure. And, the fact that the tests that we need to have. I mean, I believe I told you in one of our prior talks that, even at my heaviest, and I am fully convinced that, back when I was 335 pounds, that if I wasn't full-blown diabetic, I for sure had to be pre-diabetic because, I've got all the signs of at least insulin resistance at this point.
Yeah.
And until a couple months ago when I did a self-ordered set of labs was the first time in my life that I've ever had an HbA1c. None of my prior medical doctors have ever ordered an A1C, and to me that is just, that borders on, just ludicrous. But, you could have somebody as heavy as I was and not do an A1C or any kind of glucose test to even check for diabetes. It just boggles my mind that, and then several doctors over the course of years, and none of them ever had the, foresight to do that. So, I don't know. And like I say, listening to you is what triggered me to do that first set of labs on my own and get the HbA1c done. And that was after I was keto and had lost the weight, and that was a reasonable, it was 5.1, which wasn't bad. But it would scare me to know what it was back when I was, over 300 pounds. It had to be, 7, 8, 9, maybe higher. I don't know.
You're right. And I share that routinely, that it's a buyer beware situation out there. It's very disappointing that our medical leadership is not as in tune with prediabetes as it should be. But you listened, you learned, you acted on it, and you saved your health. So keep up the good work. Anything else you want to share with the group before we sign off?
Not that I can think of. Like I say, I appreciate your participation in this journey for me. Like I say, you've shown me a lot of things that need to be done and that I can do to get back on track and stay on track. And I look forward to the continued learning and the continued process and making sure that, everything is measured and tracked and, whatever changes need to be done are done. If it's not measured, like you say, you can't fix it if you don't know it. So,
yep.
That's probably my key takeaway from what I've learned from you.
Well, thank you again, Dave. I know that the information you're sharing can help save other lives. But I appreciate it. Well, and thank you for what you've done. You've been an inspiration and motivation. So okay. Thanks again, Dave. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and sign off unless you have anything else. I think that'll do it for now. Thanks. Continue to get great feedback regarding the webinars, and here's why. On the internet, when you hear a webinar, you expect for somebody to try to sell you something. We're not doing that. We're trying to tell you something. People are coming in with their labs from Quest, inflammation panel, OGTT, insulin survey response, and then they're finding out, do I have inflammation? Do I have insulin resistance? And where does that fit in terms of other folks? We're getting ready to start one for CIMT as well. So again, people are really excited about finding out their own status. Looking forward to seeing you there. Thanks.